Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lee Skinner. I'm the Dean of Newcomb-Tulane College, and I'm so pleased to be co-hosting this event with Dr. Dusty Porter, Vice President for Student Affairs. At so many universities, there's often a great divide between academics and student affairs, but at Tulane, we make every effort to bridge the gap in order to provide an unparalleled student experience for our undergraduates. We're very pleased to have such a great turnout of parents at this panel discussion in person after more than a year of Zoom events. It's so good to be back in person and to have your students bringing the campus back to life. I actually get excited now at class passing times when I see a rush of students entering the academic quad. It's really heartening. We expect this panel to last about 40 minutes, and there will be a reception immediately following in Greenbaum Residence Hall. Another special note, in the past, this presentation has covered our students' experiences with study abroad. But since the pandemic changed our students' access to study abroad programs for the past 2 years, we're not doing that this time. If you are interested in learning more about study abroad and opportunities that your students will have, there's a special presentation today at 3 p.m. in Freeman Auditorium, and we'll have the details available for anybody who's interested after this session.
So as Lee noted, it is amazing to be back in the swing of things. Raise your hand if you're a parent of a first-year student, just so we have a sense. Probably most of you, right? So you all got a special visit home by your son or daughter when the hurricane arrived that you were not planning on and they were not planning on. And as we all know, it hit only 6 days after the first day of classes. And I can tell you that between life during the pandemic with COVID last year, and again with the Delta variant this year, and with the hurricane, it's been an interesting time to be working in student affairs and to be a college student at Tulane. NTC and student affairs have been in tune with these events and how they've affected our students. And I want to take a minute to say how proud I am, both of our students, for navigating a first year experience, especially our freshmen with COVID and the hurricane, but also our staff members, many of whom you might have a chance to either meet this weekend or perhaps engage with over email. Our students have continued to be amazing, particularly the students you're going to be hearing from today around providing leadership on campus and student organizations, being engaged with their research, and of course, thinking about what happens after graduation. I know many of you, even though your sons and daughters might be first-year students, you're already asking yourself good questions about career and professional goals. So today's panel discussion features 4 students who have really made the most of their Tulane experience, even in the challenging dynamics of the pandemic and this year's hurricane. Some students call it the Pandurricane, which it's not easy to pronounce. These students have taken advantage of resources and opportunities ranging from student organizations and student activities to academic research with Tulane faculty members. And I think you'll find that they are going to have some insights into the ways your student can connect with meaningful experiences here on campus, no matter what they're interested in. So first, what we'd like to do is ask each of our panelists to introduce who they are and let you know their class year, their hometown, what they're majoring in, and a little bit about why they chose Tulane. And then Dean Skinner and I have got some very loaded questions to ask them to illuminate some of the pieces. So we'll go from my right.
Hello, my name's Alexis LaRosa, and I'm a junior from Long Beach, Mississippi, and I'm majoring in cellular and molecular biology. I chose to go to Tulane because Tulane had everything I wanted in a university. It's the perfect size, it's in an amazing location, and it has an excellent assortment of academic resources that have really helped me to succeed while I've been here.
Hi, I'm Joie Meyer. I am a senior double majoring in public health and psychology, and I am from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. A lot of the reasons why I chose Tulane were similar to Alexis's, but I think I really made the decision once I visited Tulane's campus, and I just felt that everyone on campus was really spirited, willing to help, and just super collaborative and friendly and inviting. And that first impression has definitely continued on for the 4 years that I've been here.
Hi, how y'all doing? My name is Bruce Carter. I'm a political science major, a junior and I'm from here in New Orleans. I chose Tulane because it felt like home, not just because I'm from here, but visiting campus, just like y'all said, everybody just they made me feel welcome. They didn't make me feel like I was just being recruited or anything like that. They really wanted my best interest at they had my best interest at heart, and they truly cared about everybody that they had interactions with, and I really appreciated that. It went a long way with me.
Hello, I'm Ishaan Dhamlay. I'm a sophomore from Plano, Texas, majoring in neuroscience and minoring in psychology, philosophy, and now cell and molecular biology. And I chose Tulane because of the amazing and incredible academic as well as research opportunities available. The amount of opportunities that you have relative to the undergraduate size is just unparalleled. And I think I have a little bit of a unique perspective in that, I'd never stepped foot at the state of Louisiana prior to move-in. And so I didn't get the opportunity to tour campus or anything like that. But I think the opportunities that were conveyed to me, as well as speaking to current students, or I guess when I was not a current student, really communicated to me how this would be my home and how I would fit in here. So I'm really glad that that was my decision in the end.
Thanks, everybody. Ishaan, we're going to start with you. And you've already mentioned that that you were attracted here because of the research opportunities, and you've already had some amazing research experiences. Could you tell us all a bit more about how you were able to make those experiences happen for yourself?
Absolutely. So I had never really been involved in research to a significant degree prior to college. I wasn't really involved in science fair or things like that. And really in terms of laboratory activity, aside from what I had in my high school lab experiments, there wasn't much. But upon arriving at college, I applied for and was accepted to a program called TRIA, the Tulane Research and Innovation Award. And then through that program, I was placed in the lab in which I currently work. So I work under Dr. Donald Gaver. He's the chair of the Department of Biomedical Engineering. And he runs a lab investigating the microphysiology of acute respiratory distress syndrome and ventilator-induced lung injury. And I just found it to be a completely new world that was opened up to me that I had never really explored before. So now I'm doing incredible research. I've learned a lot and I've had great opportunities. I actually last month had the opportunity to go present my work at the Biomedical Engineering Society in Orlando, Florida, the conference there. And it's just, looking at these different opportunities that have kind of found their way to me through this lab. I'm really grateful for those.
And have you gotten any grants to fund your research? And if so, where'd you get them from? How'd that work?
Absolutely. So research is not cheap. I know for our laboratory, it's funded by the National Institutes of Health and National Science Foundation. But in terms of my involvement for things like the past summer when I stayed on campus to conduct research, as well as for funding the travel opportunity to go and present in Orlando, that was made possible through the Newcomb-Tulane College Dean's Grant. And so the application process for that was wonderful. There were a lot of really, really helpful people who assisted me through that process. And I could not have done what I did without that support. So I'm very grateful for the financial support.
Good. I'm glad you were able to take advantage of that. And note for parents and any current students in the audience, we give out about between $90,000 to $100,000 a year in funding to support student research through Newcomb-Tulane College. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the kind of research you're doing?
Sure. So there are kind of two main research tracks that I looked at and was interested in. One is basic lab research, or also called bench research, and the other is clinical translational. So the lab I currently work in is more of the basic science or bench research. So what we're doing is we use human lung epithelial cells from the respiratory zone of your lung, and we're trying to see the microphysiology of what's going on in terms of damage that occurs. So for instance, let's say you, for whatever reason, you vomit and you aspirate that, there's going to be some stomach acid that goes into your lung that'll damage your lung, and you might end up with acute respiratory distress syndrome. And so, once that happens, it's a cyclical process. And so we're trying to understand is, one, how does that develop? But then second, whenever you get put on a ventilator, if God forbid that has to happen, that can actually propagate the disease process. And so whenever we put patients on ventilators, we need to analyze, okay, what is exactly is going to happen? And that's not fully understood yet. And so my role is basically culturing the cell layer, subjecting them to a variety of damage, and then seeing what is the cellular response. And I specifically do that using microscopy. So I look at the confocal microscope, and I'm able to build 3D models of what is going on to the cells there.
That is fascinating, and thank you for describing it in terms that non-scientists like me can understand. Hopefully some audience members can identify with me in that. And what advice do you have for students who are looking to connect with faculty around research opportunities?
Yeah, so there's a variety of different opportunities available. You have your kind of direct things, so you can reach out to faculty members who either through taking a class or if you've heard of research opportunities. There are a lot of curated opportunities available at Tulane. So I know I'm in a leadership position for an organization called the Research Ambassadors, and we're putting together a database for undergrads who are interested in joining open research labs. So opportunities like that, as well as looking at different email listservs that go out and have opportunities listed on there, but also just kind of taking opportunities as they come. Whenever you see, a faculty member's doing something that's interesting, you can reach out and say, hey, this is really interesting. I'd love to get involved. You can also see what your friends are doing. I know I have a lot of friends at Tulane who are doing groundbreaking research, and that inspires me to kind of push myself and look for further opportunities. How can I further grow and develop and explore more? And that just kind of peer support that I get from my friends here has also been very valuable.
So Ishaan, I'm not sure how, but somehow you also find time to be in student clubs. So tell us a little bit about what you're involved in. It's always amazing to me when I listen to your research that you have time to do anything else, but can you just give a brief perspective on some of the things you're involved in?
Absolutely. So I'm involved, as I mentioned, in that organization, the Research Ambassadors. So we're putting together that database called the Research Network in collaboration with Newcomb-Tulane College. I'm also involved in the Tulane Scientific Journal Analysis Club. So as part of that, we read scientific literature, we break it down in concepts in simple terms that people can understand. And then we actually invite the guest speaker to come in and present their work and get a firsthand perspective of what that's like. I'm also involved in various outreach initiatives. So there's an organization called NOLA Books and Brains. It's a neuroscience community outreach initiative where we put a variety of neuroscience books from all education levels and backgrounds in the free lending libraries around New Orleans, as well as in the public library system. And so my role in that is actually data analysis. So I'm tracking, where do books go? How do we see them, getting spread around, who is reading them, things like that. And then in terms of Greek life, I'm involved in a pre-professional fraternity, the Phi Delta Epsilon pre-medical fraternity, which I think is also a really valuable resource of like-minded individuals who are also in this pre-med game with me as well.
Thank you, Ishaan. Bruce, you and I actually have a fun fact that Bruce grew up across the street from me in New Orleans. So I got to hear from his family when he had been accepted and how excited they were. And Bruce, you are also very involved as a student leader. Can you tell the audience a little bit about how you're involved on campus?
Of course. So I'm currently a member of the Black Student Union. I'm also a member of the Black Pre-Law Society because with my major, I'm on the pre-law track, so I plan to go to law school. I'm also a member of the club basketball team here on Tulane's campus, and I'm also a manager for the women's Division I basketball team, and I will also work at the recreation center here on campus.
So how do you think in all those different ways that you're engaged, what do you think you've learned about leadership? What are some of the things that have been pieces that you've learned along the way as you've gotten so involved at Tulane?
Well, something that I've definitely learned is that you don't have to necessarily really lead have the highest spot in your club or organization in order to be a leader. I feel like a leader is setting a standard and then having people want to follow that standard also. So in a lot of the organizations that I'm in, I'm either vice president or I'm just a member, but I also work with different members of the e-board, and they kind of implement some of the things that I help them out with, especially with Black Student Union and things like that. So I feel like being a leader is just setting an example and then having people follow that.
So like a lot of Tulane students, you are also very engaged in community service. And I know that you are involved in kind of several public service endeavors. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's been like for you in terms of your engagement in New Orleans?
Well, honestly, a lot of the clubs and organizations that I'm a part of actually help facilitate that. I partnered with the Black Student Union, partnered with a retirement home that's close to campus, and we went there I believe my freshman year, and we were able to do a paint and sip just to make everybody feel good, play music, have them color and things like that. And I'm also currently the vice president of the Royal Iota chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and we also do a lot of public service events. Just recently, we were able to put some books together for different schools that were affected by Hurricane Ida, and reading is such an important part in the development of youth, and that's something that we pride ourselves on in helping the youth around New Orleans. So that's something that we really focus on. And I'm also the vice president of the NPHC organization here at Tulane, and we also do a lot of public service. We partnered with Upward Bound one year, and that's just helping out high school students after school, just help them with ACT prep or SAT prep, because a lot of the prep courses, they're very expensive, and a lot of people can't really afford things like that. So we volunteer our time to help them out with that.
So you heard Bruce mention that he is a member of a fraternity, and Alexis, you also are involved in Greek life. And I know for many of you as parents, excuse me, you have a son or daughter that might be contemplating whether to move through affiliation coming up in January. So we thought it would be really helpful for you as parents to hear a bit about that. So Alexis, can you tell us about your involvement?
Sure. So I'm very involved in my sorority, Phi Mu. Also on campus, I am a member of an organization called Hearts for the Homeless, which I founded and serve as the president. We perform free blood pressure screenings for members of the unhoused community of New Orleans. I'm also part of the research ambassadors, as Ishaan mentioned, and I work in a lab as well. But as Dr. Porter mentioned, I am very involved in my sorority, Phi Mu.
So I will point out to our parents again, whenever I ask a Tulane student, what are you involved with? Like, do I have enough time, right? So a lot of our students are involved in a lot of different things, but thinking just a bit about Phi Mu, how did you decide to join a sorority?
Initially, I did not want to join a sorority. I actually did not go through the formal recruitment process. I was a bit iffy about it. Being from Mississippi, I was used to these big state schools with these large recruitment processes like we saw in Alabama TikTok earlier this summer. But in the spring, I had some friends who went through recruitment and they joined sororities and they were very happy. They'd met a lot of good people. So I went through a process known as open bidding, where you receive a bid after not having gone through formal recruitment. So I was able to join Phi Mu this way. And it's a great option for people who are a bit iffy about going through recruitment, especially if you know which sorority specifically you're most interested in joining.
So as you think about that experience, and I'm sure for a lot of our parents, they may or may not have been in a Greek chapter when they were in college, what would you identify as what you think the benefits have been of being involved in a sorority on campus?
Yes, I have felt like there have been a lot of benefits of being a part of Phi Mu. I'm a very busy student, as many Tulane students are, and I feel like I need to have a social outlet. So it's a really good opportunity for me to be able to set aside time to meet with people that I know and that I connect with. For example, we have socials. Our big formal this year will be held at the Superdome, which is very exciting. We have different mixers with fraternities as well. It's a really good opportunity to just hang out and meet friends. We have chapter weekly where we're able to connect and do fun things. Recently, we had a mental health chapter. For Thanksgiving, we did pumpkin decorating, which was really fun. Additionally, I'm very involved with our philanthropy. So our philanthropy is Children's Hospital of New Orleans, which is great since there is a local children's hospital here. So in addition to raising money for our philanthropy, we're able to volunteer in person. Recently, a group of us volunteered for an event at Audubon Zoo called Boo at the Zoo. That was very fun, and I serve as our assistant philanthropy chair, and I really like organizing and working to support Children's Hospital.
And in addition to the social and the philanthropic aspects, your sorority is really focused on academics too. Could you speak more about that, please?
Yes, so our sorority, Phi Mu, definitely places an emphasis on academics. Members are required to complete study hours, which we can track through an app. Depending on your GPA, you're required to complete a certain number of study hours each week, which are very easy to keep track of, and just make sure you study a minimum of 1 hour a week, for example. In addition to that, we have an academic chairperson who keeps track of these studies hours and helps host academic events and rewards for members who have a certain GPA. So it's been a great way to connect with people that way as well.
It's clear that students like Alexis and Bruce and many others on campus get great benefit from their Greek life experiences. But Alexis, could you speak to some of the common challenges, such as the stress of recruitment and finances?
Right, so recruitment can definitely be a challenging event. It is fun, but it can be difficult for members to go through. So as someone who did not go through recruitment myself, but was involved with it last year, my advice for anyone considering to going through recruitment is to be open. Any sorority that you visit is open to having you as a member. And if you receive a bid from that sorority, that means they definitely want you there. These members of that sorority are open to welcoming you, and they want to get to know you as much as possible. In addition to recruitment, sororities do have financial strains that they can place on members. So the dues here compared to other universities are less expensive, but these can still place a financial burden on students and their families. Our Panhellenic Council here has a financial hardship scholarship that any student can apply for, and it will not affect their financial aid in any way. Also, many sororities like Phi Mu provide outside scholarships as well that members can apply for.
Thank you so much, Alexis. We have a lot of students at Tulane interested in healthcare, and we have for example, among our first year students, we have over 600 this year alone who declared an interest in being pre-med. And maybe some parents out here have students who have already said, I'm pre-med. We also have a lot of students who come to Tulane and discover here that there are careers in healthcare that they didn't even know were possible. So they may switch from their pre-med track, or we also have, happens to the best of us, come to campus, think you'll be a doctor, and then chem class happens. Joie, can you talk a little bit about how you came to be interested in healthcare? Because your path is very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So in high school, I volunteered at my local hospital's information desk for 2 years, and I really liked being in that healthcare setting, but I kind of knew even when applying to colleges that I wasn't really interested in that clinical and extremely scientific side of healthcare. So when I saw the public health major, which kind of looks at health on more of a population level and has more of a preventive focus, I thought that that was really interesting because I would get to learn about health and again, kind of not really have to focus on that clinical side that I already knew that I wasn't interested in. And I just paired it along with psychology because it was a personal academic interest of mine. But I still kind of wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do with my major and where I wanted to go with it because there are just so many avenues that you can take. But it wasn't really until this past summer when I had a full-time internship with Aon. I was interning with their health transformation team, which essentially kind of works with employers to better their offerings for employees in terms of health consulting, that I really was able to realize like this is a really great career path that can combine both of my majors that I am super, super passionate about. And the really awesome thing as well is that I recently received a full-time offer from them. So after I graduate, I'm going to be continuing along that health consulting field. So I was really excited about that. And I didn't even know about the field of health consulting until I started the internship. So it was really awesome.
That's such wonderful synergy of everything coming together for you. And congratulations again on your job. Could you tell us about how you got that wonderful internship opportunity at Aon?
Yeah, definitely. So my sophomore year, I took a career development class, which is a 1-credit course that is available to Tulane students of any year, really. And so what that class focused on was really building yourself up professionally. So I kind of learned how to make my resume look a little bit better, write a cover letter, and then also the process of applying to internships and jobs. So part of my class's assignment was to create a handshake profile, which is a job board that is specifically meant for college students to find internships in those entry-level positions. I didn't really look at it that much my sophomore year, but really in the spring of my junior year, when I was looking for those internships, I was spending a lot of time and I saw that Aon had posted that position. So that was how I was able to find it and apply to it.
That's great. I will note that we have about 500 students every semester who take the CRDV class that you just mentioned. And we have sections that are specifically designed for first-year students in either their first or second semester. So could you tell us also about how you spent your summers before you got this internship?
Yeah, absolutely. There were definitely moments where I felt like I was really behind some of my peers. I felt like they were getting all these really amazing, prestigious internships. But for me, the summer after my freshman year, I basically kind of just worked at my local Chipotle. Nothing super exciting, nothing super crazy. And then the summer after my sophomore year, I interned at a local gastroenterologist private practice. And I think even though maybe, you know, at the time I was really worried about like, oh, this isn't, you know, as prestigious or as fancy and shiny as what some of my other peers were saying that they were doing, I really learned a lot from both of those experiences. So I was able to really learn a lot about, you know, how a private practice is run, more of that administrative side of healthcare that I was really interested in. And then even like working, you know, in food service, I learned a lot about like working under pressure and working as part of a team. And, you know, from those two experiences, I was able to really leverage a lot of the skills that I learned. And when I was being interviewed, I just had a lot to talk about. So I found both of those to still be very valuable, even looking back, even though I was really worried about them when I was going through them.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that's just goes to show that all experience is good experience. There's something to learn from all the experiences you have. You learn some transferable skills and you learn more about your own interests and passions and enthusiasms. So that's great.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting because I feel like with any internship, you either realize like, oh, I really, really want to do this, or like, oh, I'm actually really not interested in this at all. Like some of my peers, for example, one of my close friends had a research internship and it was very valuable. But after the internship, the main takeaway she got was that she maybe didn't want to do research full time in the future. But I think really just being open to any kind of experience and realizing, you know, that you can gain something out of anything, you know, you really get out of something what you put into it, I think is just really valuable.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think your openness to new experiences is a great model for all of us, no matter what our age. And I also appreciate hearing about how you use Newcomb-Tulane College resources to move along your career path.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to ask each of our panelists if they were to give you advice as parents about what you might want to think about as you support your son or daughter to make the most of their time at Tulane. What would they offer you as advice? And then we've got a little time. We're going to open it up for if any of you have questions. I know we've got 2 microphones in the aisles. So let's hear what our students have to say. Starting from my right, we'll go down.
My advice for you as parents would be to be as supportive as you can for your children. This is a different situation than high school. There's a lot of adjustments to be made, but for me, it's always just helpful to call my mom and say, this is what happened today. Please just listen to me. So that's what I would say. Just always be open to listening, and your student will be fine.
For me, I think definitely giving them the chance to explore their passions. So something that I really appreciate my mom for doing was really encouraging me to explore my academic interests. I never felt like, oh, I have to go down this certain path because my mom is telling me to. I really felt like I had the chance to figure out, like, what am I academically interested in? And I think that passion really shines through to any employer, whether you're being hired for an internship or a job. And something that my mom also says is, like, a job is something that you're going to do for the rest of your life. So you are probably going to want to enjoy what you do. I think just really, I know that it's really important to make sure that they succeed in wanting to kind of like push them to do that. But I think there's a lot of merit to really encouraging them to find something that they are really, really passionate about. And they can only really find that passion in themselves. It's not something that can be pushed onto them.
I would definitely echo that. I know everybody's lives are vastly different, but I would say try your best not to put your child in a box, sort of say. I came in knowing what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to go to law school, so I talked to like my advisors and everything about the steps I could take to do that. But a lot of students don't come in my shoes. Some have no idea what they want to do. Some have many different passions that they're not sure which one they want to pinpoint. So I would say, not instead of saying you should do this major, you should do that major, you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer. Listen to their passions, and you can definitely like give them advice on what they should do or which passion they should focus on. But I would say focus more on it, advice, as opposed to restrictions.
I definitely agree with what the other panelists have said. I think that the support that parents can offer in terms of, especially for first-year students, but even continuing through the college years, it really makes a difference. I do think, however, that there needs to be some room for the students to make mistakes. College is a new experience. Mistakes will be made, but I'm a firm believer in that we learn the most whenever we do make those mistakes. And we can definitely grow as a person, as a student, as a member of society. And so I think that offering support whenever those mistakes inevitably do come is really the biggest way that you can make a difference as a parent for your child.
I love that. You are singing my song, right? We definitely, the only way you can make a bad mistake is if you don't learn from your mistake, right? So thank you all for those wonderful words about how parents can help support their students' transition to college and their whole time here. I would also like to add my own piece of advice, which is that please encourage your students to take advantage of all the opportunities and resources we have, and to reach out for help when they need it. We have many resources here and many people who are dedicated to helping students really thrive and find their intellectual and social home here.
If you probably know this by now, based on all the communications that you received from us during the hurricane, or maybe during COVID, we are a high-touch institution. And what I mean by that is there are just incredible staff in Newcomb-Tulane College in student affairs, and really a lot of services. And that wasn't a question, but I'm sure many of the students on the panel have taken advantage at one point of either tutoring, coaching, case management, counseling center. I mean, we really do try to have a lot of functions in place to support students as they arrive at Tulane. My only other piece of advice, I think the students nailed it, is to try to listen, try to be supportive, Try to be, you might be surprised, right? Your student son or daughter arrived thinking they were going to be a doctor, and now all of a sudden they want to be a writer. That's what college is about. And sometimes it's when you meet that incredible faculty member that you didn't even know that discipline existed. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I want to do this. So we've got some time for questions. There are some microphones. Please don't be shy. We would love to have you ask a few questions about what's on your mind as parents. You can direct your question to a specific student or just ask generally. So please step up to the mic, and this is your time as parents, and let us know what you're thinking about. Don't make me call on you. Who would like to ask a specific question or a general question of what might be on your mind as a parent of a student at Tulane? Thank you. And we have our first, always one gets it going.
It may not be good, but the question is here. So I was interested in a healthy lifestyle and what you feel is going on with Tulane. You know, I see, I'm the father of a freshman girl, and just wondering what you think are the positive influences and maybe some of the negative influences, or how you would negotiate that issue here on campus. What's to start?
Want to think about it? Bruce, you want to jump in? Anybody want to?
I would say in terms of a healthy lifestyle, there are definitely a lot of options, and that can also be a good thing and a bad thing, because you're there's not many restrictions that I've seen in terms of like what you can do in terms of eating healthy, in terms of getting the right amount of sleep and things like that. I would say that college is so different from high school. I kind of describe high school as like a 9-to-5 job. You have your classes, you know what you're going to be doing pretty much every day during the semester. Then you have extracurricular and things like that after school. But college is not like that at all. You may have a class at 1 o'clock, then you may have a service event for one of your clubs at 3:30. Then you may have another night event for another one of your events at 7. It's your time is based on you, and you kind of make your schedule. So I would say that's where parents kind of come into play with their child. Also, you can kind of talk with them about, hey, how do you feel about eating at this time? Are you eating? How are you feeling? Just checking in on them can definitely help keep them on the right track, because you're one midterm or paper away from kind of falling off a little bit. So I would say just checking in and making sure they're choosing the right options, because there definitely are, like, the options are here. You just have to make sure that you find them.
And if I can just jump in, I think that at least for me, I'm very much an organizer. I like planning things out. And I think that's one thing that has helped me is at the start of any semester, kind of sitting down and making a plan of, okay, how am I going to handle these things? Which classes do I think are going to be, taking the most toll on me? How am I going to build in time for myself, time for friends into my week? What are my limitations on food? So am I going to, it's adult life. You now are making your own decisions. It's not like you're at home and you have, mom or dad serving you food and that's exactly what you're eating, right? You can choose to go to WOW every day and get a burger and fries and that's it, right? So, setting limits for yourself, planning ahead of time, and then building in some flexibility in that plan as well, because, no plan will survive midterms or whatever, right? It's always going to deviate a little bit from that plan. But I think having an idea generally of what you want to do in terms of, okay, I want to get at least 7 hours of sleep. I know if I have a midterm the next day, that may dwindle down to 6 or something, but I'm going to make that up on the weekend. Things like that, setting up those frameworks has definitely helped me and some of my friends. And then also taking the opportunity at the end of each semester to reflect on what worked, what didn't work. if you had a week where it was really, really rough and you ended up just kind of losing track of everything, taking the time to reflect and not only decompress from what you just went through, but also learning from that experience and making sure that you don't go through the same thing again in the future is definitely a way to grow, not only in terms of, okay, you don't have to handle a similar situation the next semester, but also, hey, you learned something. Now you will be able to handle adversity later on in life as well.
I will add one quick piece, which is just every year, a new freshman class arrives, somewhere between 1850 to this year, 2030. And those students are navigating life in college. They're navigating the city of New Orleans, which has easy access to alcohol and drugs. And they're navigating what it's like to be away from home. And all that is happening at the same time, right? And I'm sure our panelists could talk about, if there was time, their narratives, their friends' narratives. But New Orleans will always be here. Tulane has its own stressors, right, around health and mental health, because our students are very immersed in their academics and they're in an amazing city. And so part of that is navigating that and also thinking about health. More to come on that. Yes.
Hi, thank you all for giving your time. You are quite impressive. I'm curious if any of you all have either done a study abroad program or have been thinking about it, and even if you're doing research, if you've thought about research overseas and how you might be approaching that, or at what time do you think is the best time during a college, student's career?
Well, I'm going to punt to Dean Skinner because actually some of you may have missed this, but we talked about study abroad as a challenge for this group because of COVID. Lee?
Yeah, so that basically study abroad's been a challenge for the past couple years. We do have a panel at 3:00 in Freeman Auditorium, which is in the Woldenberg Art Center. That's going to go on for about an hour, which is going to talk about travel and study abroad in a pandemic and hopefully soon post-pandemic world. So you can get a lot more details about study abroad and opportunities that are, I hope, going to be increasingly available to students. We're already seeing some programs and places open up. I think that's going to increase more and more.
I would say broadly, most Tulane students contemplate a study abroad experience, usually in their junior year, rarely in their sophomore or senior year. More often than not, actually lately, sometimes during the summers, because of the rigor of the academic program here. But as you all know, COVID really took a bite out of being able to find students that had great study abroad experiences, because those all got canceled with the pandemic.
Yeah. Usually in a normal semester, a normal fall semester, we would have 700 students abroad. And this semester we have 130, which is better than zero. And we'll get back to normal.
Yes.
Hi, I was wondering if you guys could talk about learning how to study, which I know just happens naturally in a four-year university, but my daughter, she made straight A's in high school, but we're seeing that there's just basic, like studying for college is a whole different animal. And so how do we, as parents, help freshmen jumpstart learning how to retain all that information and study on their own?
Hi, so my advice for your student would be catering your studying to each class. One helpful tip that I think is important is realizing which classes have the most credit hours, because those are the classes you need to study for most. And in learning how to study for these classes, Dr. Porter mentioned that we have plenty of academic resources. For many of the intro level classes, there are supplemental instructors who are students who have taken that class previously and succeeded in that class. For example, for general chemistry, you will have a supplemental instructor who will have sessions, which are tutoring sessions, group tutoring sessions, 2 times a week on average. In addition, there are personal tutors at the Academic Learning and Tutoring Center. And just studying, I think each class you have to approach differently, and all of our professors have set office hours. So if you're having issues with a particular class, I think the best way to approach that would be talking directly to the professor. I had a meeting once with the professor and I was like, I'm not sure how to study for your class. And she gave me very helpful tips. And those tips have helped me do well in other classes too.
Yeah, I think another part is to definitely just kind of experiment with it. There's no kind of one size fits all right way to study. So some of my peers really like studying on like the sixth floor of the library, but I find that like a little bit too quiet. I kind of like get really sleepy and it just doesn't really work out. So for me, I'm much more of like a first floor of the library kind of person where I like having some background noise. Some people really like studying in groups, but then some people just feel like studying alone is a lot better. I really think, there are just so many different ways to study out there, but I think really just kind of encouraging, really just finding the right fit for you. And it's like, it's okay if like, other people are doing this and that, that might work great for them, but what works great for an individual is just like what works great for them. It's not like better or worse. So I would definitely say to just try out different things and figure out what the best fit is for you.
Oh yeah, just to echo that, I would say the most important thing for your student is to know their body and know what they can and can't handle, because everybody studies in different ways. Like for me personally, from everything I was involved in high school, I noticed that I get a lot of my homework done late at night. So that's kind of something that I took into college, and that's something that's really helped me. So, but that may not be the same for your student or other students. Some people, I know some of my friends, they'll go to sleep early and then get up very early in the morning and get their work done then, so they won't get tired, or they'll be energized and they can kind of better tackle the day. So I would say just having a talk with your child and see what kind of study habits that they have at different points in the day, and you can kind of pick out what's best for them, and then they can kind of stick to that, and that'll help with any and all like classes.
And just to add on, I think while it is very true that each individual learns differently, and that each student needs to adapt to their own study strategies. I also think it's true that each class requires a different method of studying, a different way to approach it. So some classes are very much just read through your notes and understand the material, and other classes are okay, maybe the notes aren't necessarily helpful, but I do 50 practice problems a day and then I have the material down. Other classes are group study based, so if you talk about it with your peers in that class, then you can understand the material far better than you would just looking at the material yourself. And just to add on to the peer studying, I think even if you determine that a class is not really, you can't study effectively in a group, I think talking with other students in that class can help you identify what strategies are working for others, and that way you can try them out. And so really it's an exploratory process. You may not find the strategy right away. I think generally for most people it takes a couple, maybe a month or so, or the first midterm usually hits pretty hard, and then you reevaluate, okay, what worked and what didn't work. And then after that, it's just a constant adaptive process. Once you determine that, okay, studying in this manner works, then you go on to the next class, and you can kind of work through them independently, but also seeing in collaboration with your peers.
I know we have another question queued up, but I'd want to put in a quick plug for, first of all, great question and really great helpful answers from all four students. But I want to put in a quick plug too for Newcomb-Tulane College success coaching. And our success coaches work with students either through workshops or on a one-on-one coaching basis on kind of the executive functioning, general academic skills, including how to study for different types of classes, how to take good advantage of office hours, like I think it was Joy was saying, and many other kind of study skill techniques that are going to help students be successful all around.
And I would also add that Dean Skinner and I have created a program where every freshman hall has residential faculty mentors and faculty in residence in the hall. So they are there to talk with students about these kinds of questions. So if your student says, I'm not sure, another service they can go to is to walk up to that faculty in the lobby and say, and I talk with you about study skills. So plenty of opportunities for that. Next question.
Thank you all so very much for this very, very incisive panel and also being such marvelous exemplars of the opportunities that it clearly exist here. I'm the mom of a freshman daughter, and I wanted to ask that very question really about access to resources, how one gets there. The high touch approach was very appealing to our daughter and to us. But without trying to sound critical, she seems to be facing challenges of certain sorts. Like she's something of an athlete, but every time she's gone to the athletic center, it's been totally being used by the athletic teams. So she doesn't know how to get in the door. When the hurricane happened, apparently her RA and RD both left town instantly without telling anybody that. And she kind of felt bereft of, like, she'd only been here 10 days or something. Who should she talk to? Who was the adult in the room, if you will? Recently, she, even in advance of time, she tried to set an appointment with her academic advisor to talk about spring classes, and tried, and there was never space for her. So she finally has an appointment in a week, but she's registered for classes kind of from her own research and interests. But what I'm trying to ask really, is there one person or two people who's sort of an overarching presence that can help with whatever the situation is, that a student is trying to engage with something, but not having success getting through the door?
So one thing that I know personally is, I believe every first year is part of a TIDES or colloquium class, kind of a little 1 credit class. Every one of those classes has a peer mentor, and I am a peer mentor, and I've been a peer mentor from my sophomore year. And something that I really enjoy seeing among other peer mentors as well as myself is that is kind of like why they apply to the position, because they really want to help students with that. I definitely understand feeling like overwhelmed, or even like, you know, there's so much good information in emails, but when you're getting like 20 emails a day, it's just really, really hard to like sift through all that information. Peer mentors are really great upperclassmen resources that just know about those resources, but then also kind of have the student insight of more of the nuances. So like they definitely understand the struggle of like setting up an appointment with an academic advisor because they always fill up really fast, and just kind of other things like that. So I'm not sure who the peer mentor would be, but I know that usually every TIDES class has one, and they attend every single TIDES class. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to there. And then on top of that, if there are any student leaders, so like if she's really in any sort of club, again, like I always find that so many upperclassmen are willing to help just kind of impart their advice, whether they, you know someone really personally or not. I think just reaching out, which can be a little bit intimidating for sure, but I think most people are always more than willing to help, whether it be through email or being approached like in class or during a student organization meeting.
Just to clarify, you said your student was sort of an athlete, but they couldn't. It was hard for them to find.
Yes, she's not a part of a team at Tulane, but has been very athletically engaged and enjoys doing that just as a release, and and exercise and everything else, and might want to pick up one, I guess they're called either club or intramural or whatever teams. But she says she and some of her friends have gone to the athletic center numerous times just to work out or play squash, which is she's into and stuff, and can't get through the door because of the team team space or use.
Well, I would say the Riley, our recreation center, that's very that's a good space for people who are very athletic and very active students. I work there currently, and I go there frequently because I played basketball in high school, but I don't here. But I use the recreation center as a way just to.
Well, that's where she's going, and not being able to get in. And
I
she
would say-
said that over and over, she's advised that because of the pandemic and whatnot, that with limited space, that the teams are prioritized. And
Mhm.
I don't know how often, how long, I don't know details, but it's more than once that she's gone and literally there's only the teams taking over the facility.
Well, she's probably went at a different time because a lot of the teams, they have their own facilities. So the Riley Center is mostly for like just for any student to come in. I would say they probably went at a time where they do certain teams do reserve spaces at certain times. So I believe it was probably just a bad timing, and they didn't, like, your student probably didn't know that that spot was reserved. But I would say definitely keep trying the recreation center, and if it's trouble, they can always just reach out to the staff at the recreation center, and we can do our best to try and accommodate her, or let her know, hey, these are some good times that you would be able to come in. And she can also sign up for like intramural if that's something that she would like to do. Like her and her friends can just start a team, sign up, and then those will be required times where the spaces are reserved for them to play against different teams that have been made up and things like that. And club is also a good thing to get into, because again, those spaces get reserved for those people, and it will be a way for her to stay active.
Let's do this. Why don't you and I connect after the panel? And
I'm sensitive to monopolizing the floor.
Oh, that's fine.
I don't mean to. I just one more sentence.
Sure.
Is there to UND Skinner, which is there any like one person that I understand about upper class people and student support and peer mentoring and all that, which is profoundly useful, but is there like I'm using the term colloquially, but is there like a grown-up that if you're having trouble accessing things that can help you?
yes.
Or not really?
Yeah, so there are a variety of places, and I would begin probably in my portfolio
Okay.
that our division of our Dean of Students Office can help in that capacity. So let's connect after and we can talk about that. I think we have time for one more question. Yes.
I just had a question about research opportunities. Like, where is there a place or resources where the students are interested, where they can go to? And when do you suggest during those 4 years is a good time to start the research?
I'm all over this question. I'm practically jumped up. So Newcomb-Tulane College has an Office of Undergraduate Research. Send your student to us, please, right? It's never too early to start. I think Ishaan is a huge testament of that. He's came in out of the gate starting doing research, and we have many other students like him. So we have rolling grant applications throughout the year. We have a funded summer research program. We have a research network database that Ishaan also mentioned, that where faculty list their projects and students can search for available projects. That's just a couple examples of the resources. Great question.
I just wanted to add on to that, there are a lot of curated opportunities as well, but also, as I mentioned earlier, taking opportunities as they come. It may be a bit scary to reach out to a faculty member and ask, hey, do you know research opportunities available? But I found that if you go during office hours and you ask about that, one, they're going to love you for the rest of the year. And secondly, you're going to get a really great resource of somebody who can almost be a point person for, if you have any questions, if you need a letter of recommendation for applying for any of these programs. The faculty here really, really wants to see students get engaged, because they understand that research labs are one of the biggest ways for students to learn about real world applications of scientific research. And so making use of the resources that you have. You're in classes anyway, so just reach out to like faculty members, and they might be able to put you in contact with somebody who's actively recruiting.
And if you're the parent of a student who's not scientifically inclined, there are research opportunities in every single field. And our faculty do want to work with undergraduates, right? Our faculty are passionate about what they do. And what do we know about people who love what they do? They want to share it with other people. Right?
Let's give a round of applause for our 4 students today that have been willing to be with us.